When you're staring at the endless sea of gaming monitors on Amazon, it's easy to feel the pressure of making a wrong call. You end up either overpaying for a flashy spec sheet you never use, or you get a screen that just can't keep up with the games you love. I'm going to walk through exactly how the Sony INZONE M10S fits into that decision, so you can see whether the hype translates into real-world value for you. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. First off, the thing that makes most people pause with the INZONE M10S is the promise of an OLED panel at 27 inches paired with a 480Hz refresh rate. That sounds like a dream for anyone chasing the smoothest possible motion, but the question is, does it actually feel smoother in a typical gaming session, and does it stay comfortable after a few hours? I spent a couple of weeks swapping the M10S into my daily rig, using it for everything from fast-paced shooters to long RPG evenings, and I paid attention to the moments that matter: the instant the gun fires, the way moving clouds scroll in a racing game, and even how the screen handles the static HUD elements you stare at for minutes on end. The first thing you notice when you set it up is the low-profile stand. It's a single-piece aluminum base that sits almost flush against the desk, which is a blessing if you have a tight workstation or you like a clean aesthetic. The height adjustment is smooth, and the tilt range lets you angle the screen for both sitting and standing positions without any wobble. Because the stand is so minimal, you'll need to make sure your desk can handle the weight. The monitor is a solid 13 kilograms, but it feels stable once it's in place. Now let's talk about the OLED display itself. OLED's biggest selling point is the ability to turn each pixel completely off, delivering perfect blacks and infinite contrast. In a dark FPS map, you'll see enemies pop out of the shadows in a way that a traditional LED can't match. The colors are vibrant, but they're not oversaturated. They feel natural, which is something I appreciate during narrative-driven games where atmosphere matters as much as speed. However, the brightness ceiling is lower than many high-end LED panels. In a sunlit room, the screen can feel a bit washed out, so if you're planning to game with the lights on or near a window, you might need to add a bias light or dim the environment to get the best picture. The 480Hz refresh rate is where Sony tries to push the envelope. In practice, you'll notice a difference most clearly in titles that support ultra-high frame rates: racing sims, battle royales, and fast shooters. In a test with a 240 FPS capable game, the monitor delivered fluid motion without any stutter, and the 0.03 milliseconds response time means ghosting is virtually non-existent. For competitive players who thrive on split-second reactions, that low input lag feels tangible. That said, the benefit tapers off if your GPU can't push beyond 144 frames per second in most games, which is the case for many mainstream setups. In those scenarios, the extra refresh isn't wasted, but you won't be fully capitalizing on the 480Hz capability. Sony's Tournament Ready mode is a software preset that automatically disables post-processing, caps the brightness, and optimizes the panel for low latency. I tried it in a couple of online tournaments, and the monitor behaved predictably: no surprise frame drops, and the OSD stayed out of the way. The downside is that the preset can be a little aggressive on the black level for brighter titles, making shadows look almost too deep. If you prefer fine-tuning, you'll have to dive into the menu and adjust the gamma and contrast yourself, which adds a small learning curve. One of the concerns that pops up with any OLED is burn-in. Sony addresses this with a custom heatsink and an OLED care system that cycles pixels during idle periods. Over the week, I left the monitor on a static news ticker for several hours each day, and the built-in pixel shift feature did its job. There was no noticeable imprint afterward. That said, any OLED still carries a risk if you habitually display static UI elements for many hours. If you're a streamer who leaves a constant overlay on screen, you may want to rotate assets or use a dark mode to mitigate potential wear. The high bandwidth inputs, including a DisplayPort 1.4 and HDMI 2.1, mean you can hook up a next-gen console or a high-end graphics card without worrying about bandwidth bottlenecks. I connected both a PlayStation 5 and a RTX 4090, and the monitor accepted the full 1440p signal at the highest refresh rates without any handshake issues. The built-in speaker system is modest enough for a quick chat, but you'll still want a headset for immersive audio. Now, who should actually buy this monitor? If you're a competitive gamer who spends hours in titles that support high frame rates, the combination of OLED contrast and ultra-fast refresh can give you a measurable edge. The low-profile stand and sleek design.